class, and so if you want to get that out of your backpack and on the screen located behind me, that is the next class that we'll be conducting, and it's going to be on our curriculum, and I'm excited to share that with you. And it's really the core of our school that most people have never seen, and it is password protected, and you cannot access it unless you are enrolled in the school. And since you are at AMC, you get an enrollment, and we will provide that for you. And I have people every single day trying to get into that website. I said, sorry, you got to enroll in the school first. And so you have that blessing, and we'll share that with you in the next class after this class. Once again, you'll be looking at the Evangelism Simplified Guidebook. We're going to be looking at some charts together, and they'll be located on the screen as well. And so give me just a couple of minutes, and we'll get things going. Michael, I realized I hadn't given it to you. Yep, instrumental music. Yes, sir, it is. So how did the new movers go? Y'all like that? Raise your hand if you like new movers. I mean, lots of contacts, and the percentage is going to be pretty high. Just like Austin and I had kind of foreshadowed, it would be the most productive, and we saved that to the end to let you experience that. Of course, we have more baskets to deliver. You'll find that you'll have a percentage now that will be home in the evening. We'll try again tomorrow, and then tomorrow, of course, we have a couple of classes, and Austin and I have talked about, if we want to move forward and knock some doors. And my thought is you're here to work. My thought is you're not here to sit in a hotel room. And so we'll be announcing kind of what our plans are tomorrow. But I'll get a quick poll. Does anybody want to continue door knocking tomorrow? Raise your hand. That's what I thought. All right, so we'll make sure that we do that. And what we'll be doing is using all strategies. So we'll give you the choice. You use what you want to use. We'll give you a road. You go out, and we'll let you do. Of course, we will have morning card writing tomorrow, but just morning card writing. And Jason or Tony or Jim, if you guys are, I see, there's Jason, Jim. In any case, or Tim, if you guys want to, send your phone message that we'll still be doing card writing tomorrow for your members, so they know if they want to come and be a part of that, that will be the last opportunity. So let's go ahead and get started in our lesson. So what about instrumental music? So what about it? Well, I've noticed in evangelism that there's an ever-increasing number of brethren who ignore it. It's not that they're for it, they just ignore it. They just don't discuss it. So they look at it as a negative, and so let's remove all negatives. So if it's a contrasting, distinctive characteristic that may cause a roadblock, we'll just, we'll push it off. My suggestion would be that this is a topic that actually isn't advantageous. It's not a disadvantage. It's going to help you show the difference. I've been doing Bible studies since I've been 18 years old. And I will suggest that of all the Bible studies I've been involved with, Nicole and I've done hundreds of them together, I cannot think of one person who didn't obey the gospel because of instrumental music. Not one person. And so what I've learned is that if I approach it in the right manner, if I approach it from the right attitude, it becomes an advantage to helping a person obey the gospel of Christ. So when Nicole and when I graduated from the Southwest School of Bible Studies in 1997, my first work was in Poole, Kentucky. So we got the U-Haul, we traveled up, and Poole is about a town of 300 people. There's just not a lot in Poole. It's surrounded by cornfields. It's just farm equipment, farmers, and some oil rigs. So as we were unloading, the town came out and greeted us, and most of the town, not even Christians, they were there to meet the preacher. And there's a little restaurant. There's this one restaurant in Poole. So after we unloaded everything, the members said, well, let's go to that restaurant. So Nicole and I, it's a little restaurant. It was pretty packed. Most of the town, I think, was there. We walked inside the restaurant, and everybody stopped eating, looked up, and it got dead silent. And you could tell, that's the preacher. That's the preacher they are. We were wet under the ears. I was not very old. And that began our work at Poole, Kentucky. The elders, not long after we'd been there, had a meeting with me. And they said, well, preacher, what do you plan to do in Poole, Kentucky? And I said, well, I'm going to evangelize. They said, you can't evangelize. There's only 300 people here. We have 4 churches. Everybody's already chosen their church. But if that's what you think you want to do, good luck. All right? They went back to the farm. And so I started evangelism. First place I went was the barber. I need my hair cut. So I'm going to evangelize the barber. He's a Baptist. That's where he attends. But that doesn't stop me. I'm going to do in a form what I'm doing here. And I didn't have a formal process, but I knew that food was always good. And so I said, hey, Carol Whitledge. I said, you know what? I'm from Texas, and you guys have something called mutton as barbecue. And I tell you what, you need to know what real barbecue is. It's called brisket. Mutton is sheep, by the way. That's what they had around that area. And I said, why don't you come to my house? I'll smoke you a brisket, and I'll share with you what real barbecue is. He said, wow, you smoke? I said, yeah, absolutely. So my mother had taught me how to do it when I was in Texas, and so I got the brisket, prepared it, and got it ready for, Nicole made all the fixings and had him come over and got to know Carol, and eventually Carol agreed that he'd do a Bible study with me. Well, I didn't really know what to do. Outside of the school, I had really never had a formal Bible study method. I always drew something out. I had memorized places I would go. But when I was going to school, a man by the name of Rudy Kane taught me how to do a Bible study. And he was very close to a man by the name of Bobby Bates. And of course, that's where he introduced us back to the Bible. So I grabbed those little booklets and I did that Bible study with Carol Whitledge, and we baptized him. Well, the elders were beside themselves. I can't believe, we've never seen that before. And so I just went through the town, and one of the individuals, and I noticed it was sitting in our pews, his name was Randall Rideout. Randall is the husband of Renee Rideout, and she is the daughter of one of the families. And so I went to the elders. I said, that man comes in, right before I preach, and then, who is he? Well, that's Renee's husband. He's not a Christian, Rob. And I said, well, what do you mean? What is he? He said, he's a Methodist. And I said, well, let's convert Randall Rideout. They said, Rob, you can't convert Randall Rideout. He's a superintendent of music. Rob, you're not going to convert him. All his family goes there. And I said, we'll see. And he said, Rob, I bet you a Coke you can't convert him. And I said, you're on. And I said, I'm not promoting gambling. Okay. Don't rock. I said, you're on. So anyway, I went to Randall, and we were friends, and Renee had us over to the house. They had a huge old Great Dane, massive dog. I still remember his farm equipment out there. We would talk and visit, and one day I said, Randall, what do you think about having some brisket someday? He said, what, brisket? And I said, yeah, it's real barbecue. And I said, I'll smoke it, get it ready. He said, man, I'd love to have some. I said, okay. So I said, why don't you come out one day? And I strategically picked a day when his wife would be working. I wanted just Randall. And which means sometimes one of the greatest obstacles to conversion is the Christian mate. And I can talk about that later in more detail. And so I had Randall, and not that they don't want them to obey, but just that they're scared. They're fearful of what might happen. And so they won't let you approach them. So we had Randall over to the house. We had the brisket, and as he's sitting there eating, and we're talking, I said, hey, Randall, I said, you come to church with Renee? He said, yeah. How long you been doing that? Oh, ever since I met her. We got married. I said, you ever kind of wonder, the differences between the Methodist church? He said, I kind of wonder why we, do things different. I said, I just so happen to have these little booklets. Uh-oh. Somebody hold them up for me, okay? There you go. All right. So I said, we can go ahead and do a Bible study. And he said, that'd be great, So we go through lesson number 1, and he loves it. He's really, he's on board. He sees it. He said, man, I didn't know the difference between the Old and New Testament, which is setting the premise for this lesson, right? You got to know the difference between the Old and New Testament. You got to understand Bible authority, right? So we finished that lesson, and Nicole and I are feeling pretty good. But then Nicole says to me, he says, Rob, he's a superintendent of music. This isn't the average Joe. She said, well, how do you think this is going to work, when we get to book 2? And I said, you're right. I said, well, honey, let's look at that book 2. So we opened it up, and, I'm looking at it. I'm going to say this. I don't believe there's a Bible study method that lays out God's teaching of music better than Back to the Bible. And I've looked at a lot of studies. I think this is one of the strengths of Back to the Bible. I said, Nicole, I want to illustrate this teaching. I want to illustrate it. So we went to our 486-33DS computer. Who remembers those old IBMs? It's old, right? Had the 5.5-inch floppy, something called clip art. And so I put the clip art in, and I started making graphics. And I made these charts. All right? That was going to be in 1999. Okay? And so we're now 25 years later, and I'm still using them. What I want to teach you is how we brought Randall Rideout to Christ. If you're going to do a Bible study, brethren, you need to make sure your Bible study is distinctive. I don't run away from contrast. I invite contrast. I think that's how you get conversion. I believe one of the reasons we're struggling in some of our churches to get a conversion is because people don't see a difference. And if you're not going to be distinctive in your Christianity and you're going to soft soap it or be non-distinctive, undistinctive, then why would they leave? Why would they change? And so showing people the differences is one of the reasons why they convert. And so as we're walking through the booklet, they're learning those distinctions very quickly. The first distinction they're going to learn is the difference in the Old and New Testament. We're not under the old law. That's vital for this lesson. When I get to the blue booklet of Back to the Bible, all right, and everybody opened up their blue booklet, so go ahead and get your blue booklet out, and we'll, Back to the Bible. You can use your teacher's edition. You can use the regular print edition. I'll show you kind of where. I'll get the large print so you can see it as I'm going through it. I do this. So go to page number 6, page 6. All right, page number 6. And you'll notice on the left-hand side, it says Ephesians 5:19. So this is when we deal with music in the church. Now, when I get to Ephesians 5:19, I'm going to use this chart. This is one of the charts I'm going to use. So if you're using the large print edition, it has a place for notes on the side. And you can put down there this particular chart. So it's chart 7, I believe, in the evangelism simplified or congregational evangelism. Is that correct? Let me make sure I have that right. It would be chart 7, yes, page 71 in the evangelism or congregational evangelism. Now, I also have them available in what we call evangelism visualized, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but it's a lot better. It's a flip chart, got more charts in it. It's got a script on the back that gives you actually the words to say as you use the chart. And we'll talk about that here in just a bit. So you're on page number 6 of Back to the Bible, and so we're doing a Bible study, and I would say, okay, Randall, would you read to me Ephesians 5:19? Speaking to one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody in your heart to the Lord. And so I would ask this question, Randall, are we to sing? And of course he's going to say yes. I've never had anyone say no. Everybody reads that passage, yes, we're to sing, okay? So it's going, yes. Does this passage mention mechanical instruments of music? Very little pushback here, because it doesn't. In fact, I don't know if I've had anyone get it wrong. They may have to read it again, but they're going to say, no, it does not. All right, now, Church historians tell us that the followers of Christ did not use mechanical instruments of music in their worship for hundreds of years after Christ. The Greek Orthodox Church, which broke off from the Roman Catholic Church, has never used instrumental music in their worship. When you attend the worship of the Church of Christ, you will notice we do not use instrumental music in our worship. The following comparisons help us to illustrate the reason. All that's verifiable. You can go to Grok, chat whatever, AI, and you're going to find that same information. So that's not debatable. It's facts. All right, so now once we establish, okay, that we're looking at the difference between mechanical instrumental music and music, all right, we're going to start making some comparisons. And this is when I start beginning with charge. So the first charge is called the law of exclusion. It says that which is specifically stated excludes all others. And the law is not a book of don'ts. If it were, we'd need a truck to carry it around. And so when the law says to do something, it excludes everything else. And we introduce that thought. Now, we're going to keep with that thought and go to chart 8, page 72. The law is a book of do's. What the law says do, okay, it excludes all others. So, as you can imagine, when we examine, this hermeneutical principle or principle of interpretation, we can use it not only in religious understanding, but we can use it in life. And so that's what we're going to do. All right, you're caught speeding. The sign says 65, but the officer pulls you over and says, listen, you're doing 85 miles an hour. But your response is, now, officer, I didn't see a sign that says you can't do 85. Okay, would that work? Would they give you a break? Would they, oh, you're exactly right. There was no sign like that. And so I can understand how you get confused. And so we'll just let you go on your merry way. There isn't a police officer anywhere that would do that. All right. And if you said that to them, they'd probably lock you up and put you in a padded room, because we don't want people who think like that on the road. When it says 65, it doesn't have to say don't do 66, don't do 67, don't do 68, don't do 69. When it says 65, that's what it means, 65. And if you choose to increase your speed beyond 65, you could get a ticket. And everybody knows that. And you don't sit there and argue with the officer. Well, I didn't see no sign that says you can't do 85. You show me where that sign's at. Never going to work. All right? So they're going to be with you. They're going to say, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I get that. I get that. So just like, as we do Bible studies, just like with Jesus, we're going to parallel an earthly situation alongside a spiritual principle so that they can see the answer. So at this point, they're all there. They're with you. They're not arguing with you whatsoever. And we're just going to move forward. Page 10. All right, chart 10, page 74. The Bible must be understood with the same law. Okay? Colossians chapter 3, verse 17. Whatsoever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord. And so when the officer says, stop in the name of the law, when he says that, that means stop by the authority the law gave him. Now, if Eric Shear pulled up behind me and said, stop in the name of the law, can he do that? Can he do that? Can he pull up behind me and say, stop in the name of the law? Yes, he can do it. He has no authority. He can say whatever he wants to. Now, I think this is an important distinction. Just because somebody gets up in front and says, Jesus, 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 that doesn't mean he authorized you. See, in the name of doesn't mean you chant Jesus' name. That's where you have to make a distinction. It doesn't say, well, Jesus said, Jesus. And, you hear these denominational preachers, they get up there and, in Jesus' name, and boy, they just know how to, the voice inflect, in Jesus' name, and they'll get everybody riled. Everybody's Jesus. And, and hey, he said Jesus. Doesn't mean that Jesus authorized, does it? What does it mean in the name of Jesus? What does that mean? Right. Yeah, he by his authority, he's giving you permission to do it. So where Eric cannot pull up behind me and say, hey, stop in the name of the law, but Keno, who was in law enforcement, at one time, he could pull up behind someone and he could say, stop in the name of the law, because the law's authorized Keno to do that. All right, so there's a difference, huge difference. And I think we need to make that very plain. And so, because in the minds of some people, as long as you say in Jesus' name, you can do anything you want. Right? You can wood whittle. You can jump up and down. You can do cartwheels down the aisle. As long as it's in Jesus' name. All right? But that's not what it means. And we know that. So we make that distinction right there. Now, let's look at Genesis 6:14. Everybody open your Bibles, Genesis 6. So I'm going to use charts 1, 2, 3, and 4, or as we illustrated here in the book, right? Chart 7, 8, 9, and 10 right there. I'm going to use those 4 charts, all with Ephesians 5:19. So if you want to make a note there, you can put chart and you can put their numbers down. But I know in my Bible studies that I'm going to bring out these big charts Nicole made me in 1999, and I'm going to show them those 4 charts. I still have them in my office. Now, let's go to the next one. Genesis 6:14. God told Noah, make thee an ark out of gopher wood. All right? So here is a great illustration of this principle. God said, make me an ark out of gopher wood. Now, the question is, would Noah have sinned if he built the ark out of metal or mud? Would he have sinned, yes or no? Yes. Okay, again, all the Bible studies that I've done in my life, I've never had one person miss this. Not one person. All right? Go to the next one. All right, would Noah have sinned if he had built the ark out of any other type of wood? And the answer, of course, is yes, he would have sinned. So we have some illustrations on the top of page number 7, but also we've got a chart, and I'm just going to refer to it. It says when God said gopher wood, that automatically eliminated all other types of wood. So did God have to say, don't use oak, don't use pine, don't use ash, don't use red oak, don't use poplar, don't use cedar? Did he have to say that? No, when he said gopher wood, okay, he eliminated all other types of wood. So I was in the presence of a liberal-minded brother, and he came up to me and he said, well, you know, some of the versions don't say gopher wood anymore, and we're not even sure what gopher wood was, and how can you make an argument when we don't even know what gopher wood was? I don't care what you call that wood. When God said use it, whatever wasn't that wood is excluded. All right? Sometimes it's amazing how far people will go in order to miss the point. All right? So make thee an ark out of gopher wood. It eliminates whatever gopher wood. It doesn't matter what it was. Whatever it was, okay, everything else is eliminated. All right? I had one person said, well, gopher wood was just generic for all types of wood. Okay, I'll give it to you. All right? So that means when he said gopher wood, generic for all other types of wood, you couldn't use mud. The argument still stands. Right? It doesn't matter where you go with this. We understand when God specifies whatever is not included in that specification is not included. You're not authorized to do it. Now, let's go over here to Leviticus 10:1 and 2. So everybody open their Bibles, Leviticus 10:1 and 2. That's your third book of the Bible. And we'll move to Leviticus 10 and talk about Nadab and Abihu. And Leviticus 10:1 and 2. So here we go. Now Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took either of them their censer, and they offered strange fire before the Lord, and put incense thereon, and they offered strange fire before the Lord, which God had not commanded them. Now a censer was kind of a device they would use for holding these coals, and they put incense on it, and they offered a strange fire. Why was it strange? Does anybody know why it was strange? What other versions say? Profane. Okay, but I like the word strange. I'll just be here. Here, I think the King James Version nails it. All right? I like the word strange better. Why was it strange? Okay, well, yeah, that's the main point. So let me kind of run you through this. This is kind of how I explain it in a Bible study. I say, God looked down there. He says, wait a minute, what's that? I don't recognize that. I didn't tell him to do it that way. That's not the fire. That fire is not from where I told him to get it. I don't recognize that. That's strange. That's how I explain it. In other words, God's looking down, watching what they're doing, and saying, listen, that is not what I told you to do. So it's profane. Obviously, it's profane. That is irreligious. It's not following what God said. Now, the King James Version does pose a little bit of a challenge right here at the end of this verse. And I'm going to give it to you because in Bible studies, I've had this come up. Okay. They offered a strange fire before the Lord, which he commanded them not. And there are very few people who read that and think that means God said no. And that's not what that means. What does that mean? He had not authorized it. The New King James says, which God had not commanded. So they offered a fire which God had not commanded. And you need to make that distinction here and know that the King James rendering could cause a little confusion, and make sure you realize that what that means is that God had never authorized that. He never told him to do it that way. They decided to do it on their own way. Now let's go to verse 2. There came out a fire from the Lord and devoured them, and they died before the Lord. Now, question is in verse page 7, did Nadab and Abihu sin when they offered a different kind of fire than God commanded? And Randall put down yes. Okay. Randall, did God punish them? He said, oh, yes. I'd say that's punishment. I'd say it is too. Number 3, is it important to worship God the way he is commanded without alteration? He said yes. Again, he's perfect through all of this. He gets it. He sees it. It's simple. And you got to keep the truth simple. Now, let's go to Matthew 26, 26 through 29. Go to Matthew 26, everybody. Take your Bible. So we're in Matthew chapter 26. And what's under discussion in Matthew 26, 26? Who knows? The Lord's Supper. That's right. The Lord's Supper. So now we're going to switch to the Lord's Supper. All right, and we're going to read through it. And I would have Randall read it, and he did. And here we go. All right. And as they were eating, Jesus took bread, blessed it, brake it, and gave it to his disciples, said, take, eat, this is my body. He took the cup, gave thanks, gave it to them, saying, drink ye all of it. For this is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. But I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of this fruit of the vine until the day when I drink it anew with you in my Father's kingdom. Would it be a sin to put jam on the bread to improve the taste? Okay, yes, because that's kind of irreligious, sacrilegious, blasphemous almost. I would not do that. No, you can't put jam on. Okay, next. Would it be a sin to add vitamin tonic to the fruit of the vine to aid in our enthusiasm in serving God? If you want to put Monster drink there, the same thing. Could you put a Monster drink in there? Vitamin tonic, some type of Bobby Bates, when he wrote this, used the word geritol. How many of you remember geritol? Nobody young raised their hand. No idea what that is. So we changed it to vitamin tonic or Monster drink, whatever, right? So yes, of course that would be a sin. Would it be a sin to add hamburgers and milkshakes to the Lord's Supper? Would that be a sin? Of course it would be. Now look at your chart here. We are authorized to use fruit of the vine and unleavened bread, but we would draw more people with hamburgers, and the Bible doesn't say not to. So I continue to drive home that point. Illustrations. We're doing the same thing as in the book. Now let's go to page number 8. Would Noah have sinned if he had used oak and gopher wood in the ark? So let's say, well, yes, I did what God said, but I did what I wanted to do too. Would he have sinned? Answer is yes. Did God approve of Nadab and Abihu offering a different kind of fire than he commanded? And Randall said, no, God did not authorize that. He did not approve that. Now, before I do the last question, I know this last question is where the rubber hits the road, and I wasn't so sure Randall was prepared for that last question. So I created some additional charts to kind of aid this part of the study. I've done a lot of Bible studies prior to Randall, and what I know is that when you get to this part of the study, I know what the arguments are. They're always the same, okay? They're always the same. They're going to make these arguments. Now, of course, we have used, all right, this comparison of the Lord's Supper to instrumental music, and Randall could see that. Okay, he saw that. But the question is, okay, what is he going to do once he's forced to make application? He's going to try to defend it, and there's only so many ways to do this. The first defense people normally give, well, I know what I've read, but I still don't feel like there's anything wrong with it. I feel like it's okay. So I'm going to deal with that argument. So I'm going to remove the objections. Guess who brings up the objections? Randall or me? Why is that important? Because if you're trying to convince someone of something and you know there are objections, it's always good for you to bring it up. Now, let me show you. I'm in sales. Okay, I'm going to do a sales model. And I never took a sales course in my life, but I bought cars before. And I know what car salesmen do. You walk on the lot, and you want that F-150, and that F-150 is beautiful. But the problem is, how many of you have gone to buy a new Ford F-150 lately? Anybody know what they cost? All right, it's like $60,000, $70,000. Now, when you drive on that lot, right, and you want that brand new Ford, that salesman is well trained. And what he knows is that there are objections that you're going to offer. What's the first objection you're going to offer? Oh, that's more than 20 years ago, I got a house for that price. I mean, I can't afford it. That's a house payment. He knows that. So he's not going to wait for you to bring it up, but he's going to bring it up. He's going to frame the argument. And he's going to deflect all those negatives. He's going to get rid of all of them. So he's going to ignore the price. And this is what he's going to say. Hey, man, this is your lucky day, Jason. This is your lucky day because we're offering $10,000 incentives. We're offering 0% financing. And you can take this truck home, Jason. It's only $399 a month. Now, he doesn't tell you you're going to do that for 10 years. He doesn't tell you that part of it, okay? All right? All he wants you to do is get, whatever it is. He's going to get you to get that. He's going to bring it up. He's going to frame it. He's not going to wait till you go over to the sticker and read it and then, in shock, pass out. All right? He knows it's a problem. All right. So when I'm doing a Bible study, I know what they're going to say. I've done these studies for years. They're going to fall back to about 4 basic positions. Position number 1, I just don't feel like there's anything wrong with it. Well, let's deal with it. Proverbs 14:12. There's a way that seemeth right unto man, but the ends thereof are the ways of death. Jeremiah 10:23. Oh Lord, I know the way of man is not in himself. It's not in man to walk to direct his own footsteps. And so that's not an argument that holds water. Our feelings can mislead us. They can, they can take us in the wrong direction. So I'm going to eliminate that. Then I'm going to bring up the next one. But look at all those people. This is my grandmother here. She said, but look at all those people. I mean, everybody uses instruments. Surely I cannot accept that they're all wrong. I just cannot accept this. So the people who use instrumental music, surely they can't all be wrong. So now we're going to list some passages to show that doesn't hold water. Exodus 23:2, thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil. Matthew 7:13 and 14, enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, broad is the way that leads to destruction. Many there be that go in thereat, but narrow is the way, straight is the gate that leads to life. Few there be that find it. Then we're going to go to our last passage, Matthew 7:21. Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, not everyone shall enter the kingdom of God, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. So we're going to eliminate that argument. All right, now I'm just walking him through. But all those people are so sincere. They love God. Surely God would not punish sincere people. I mean, they love God. They want to praise God. Surely God will accept it. Well, let's deal with that. All right. Let's just use common sense. All right. Would you want a sincere doctor to operate on you without the truth? I've used this illustration since I've been a teenager. I remember because I was taught this from Daryl Conley. Okay, and so you come in, you got an appendicitis, and all of a sudden it's acute, and it's bad, it's inflamed, it's about to burst, and you just lean over. Your best friend has always wanted to be a doctor, never gone to medical school, doesn't have any medical training, but he loves to play doctor. And he says, "Don't worry, Rob, I've got you covered." He says, "No need to pay those doctors." And he runs inside, he gets his medical kit, he comes outside and he said, "Now, Rob, I've got you all covered. This won't hurt a bit." He gets the scalpel out, he says, "It's about right here." He says, "All right, Rob, we're ready to go." And he says, "Rob, I love you. You know I love you. I care about you. Rob, I would never hurt you." He's very sincere. Tears are falling out of his eyes because he knows that this is critical. And you're looking at him and you know he cares. Would you let a sincere person operate on you without the truth, yes or no? Nobody would do that. No one would do that, all right? So sincerity is a needed quality, but sincerity alone is not sufficient in any area. So is sincerity alone sufficient in law, medicine, math, education, religion? And the answer is no. 2 + 2 is 4. Doesn't matter how many crocodile tears, the 5-year-old cries in class, it's still 4. He got it wrong. You put 3. All right. Now, therefore, Joshua 24 and 14, fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and truth. You already read John 4:24 earlier on. God is spirit. They that worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. You got to have both elements. So just because they're sincere, they can be sincerely wrong. All right, you can give a lot of examples of that to show that sincerity alone. So we're going to get rid of that argument. That's argument number 3. Now we're going to go to argument number 4. Well, the Bible doesn't say not to. Now you've already dealt with this. But remember, that was the first thing we did back in page number 6. All right, but still, they're still going to bring it up. Almost in every case, they're eventually, there's a lot of things the Bible doesn't say you can't do, but it's not a book of don'ts. That's not how God teaches. He doesn't say, don't do this, 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 don't. He just says, do this, sing. It eliminates everything else. And I give some examples. The Bible doesn't say you can't use marijuana. The Bible doesn't say you can't use crack cocaine. The Bible doesn't say you can't use methamphetamines. Where's it say that? It doesn't. But it does say be sober. That eliminates all those things. Okay? Anything that would inhibit your sobriety is eliminated at that point. We have members of the church that make this argument. And I've heard them say this. Well, the Bible doesn't say you can't smoke marijuana. If you're going to make that argument and smoke your marijuana, you might as well bring the instrument in. Because you have just destroyed Bible hermeneutics. Because that's not how the Bible works. The Bible does not work like that. God says, here's what we do. Everything else is excluded. Okay? The Bible is not a book of don't. Remember the example of the speed limit sign? Don't do 65, don't do 66. It's the same thing. Okay? So we're just, again, re-emphasizing that principle. Let's go to chart number 18, page 82. Argument number 5. Okay, but what about David? He played, and how many of you have heard this argument from the Old Testament? Oh, yes, David played the harp. If David can play the harp, then we can play instruments today. And so, again, you've already dealt with this. When did you deal with this? When? Book 1. All right, you've already done this, but they have not applied it, so you got to remind them of what they learned. All right, Colossians 2, 12 through 14. When a person goes to the Old Testament, he admits 2 things. Number 1, I need authority for what I'm doing. That's why he's in the Old Testament. He's trying to find it. Now, he's in the Old Testament. Why? Because number 2, it's not in the New Testament. If it was in the New Testament, he would be in the New Testament. There's a reason he's in the book of Psalms and not in the book of Acts, because you can't find it in the book of Acts. So he's back in the Old Testament because you can't find it in the New Testament. All right? So you remind them of what the Bible teaches in Colossians 2:12, blotting out the handwriting and ordinances that were against us, that were contrary to us. He took it out of the way. He nailed it to the cross. All right? So those old ordinances are gone. So now again, I'm addressing all the arguments. I am not waiting for him to bring it up. I'm going to just put him out there, and I'm going to deal with each one of them. I'm going to push him aside. Now that we're at this point, brother, there's not much to say. I don't know if there's another argument, I don't know what it is. I've never heard it. I've never experienced it. It'd have to be something bizarre. Okay? So now we're at the very final point here. Very final point. Now, again, we've got one question left, right? That's for chart number 19. That one question, if you want to put a note there, is for chart number 19. I'm going to use the chart first, then I'm going to ask the question. So I said, hey, Randall, I want you to imagine something. You've lost your Great Dane, your dog, the Great Dane. And Randall, this dog means a lot to you. It's a family dog. Money is not an object. Randall, let's just pretend you are one of the wealthiest people on earth, and you've lost your Great Dane. So, Randall, you create this little flyer because you want to find your dog. The dog is the world to you. And on the flyer, it says, study the instructions. Don't add to the instructions. Don't take away from the instructions. Only do what the instructions tell you to do. Instruction. Okay? And you're going out there, and it says, you're trying to find this dog, and $1 million is offered. $1 million for a dog. You got this briefcase full of cash, right? $1 million. And you're telling people, listen, if you'll meet my conditions, I'll give you the $1 million. Well, in this case, you give them a flyer. It's not the dog. It's not the dog at all. It's all you got to do is sing. Just sing. And I got a briefcase with $1 million that sing. And don't add to, don't take away from, only do what you have authority to do. What would you do? And if I got $1 million, Randall, what would you do? Randall said, I'd sing. I said, Randall, would you go back out to your car and get your piano or go get your trumpet or get your instrument? He said, no. I said, why? But the instructions said not to do it. I said, yeah. So for $1 million, you would just sing. You would not do anything but sing. He said, I would just sing. That he doesn't even realize where he's at. And this is what happens in most Bible studies. He's in a bad position right now. He is so self-contradicted, but he doesn't realize it yet. I said, Randall, let's go back to the Bible. 2 Timothy 2:15. Study, just like the instructions, study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Let's go back here again. Revelation 22:18. I testify to every man that hears and reads the prophecy of this book, if any man add unto these things, I will add unto him the plagues written in the book. Now, Revelation 22:19, if any man take away from these things, I will take his name out of the book of life, out of the holy city, from the things in the book. Now, next passage. Only do what you have authority to do. And whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus. Colossians 3:17. So we're just following the same format, but now I've got Bible verses behind it. He got it without the Bible verses. He's ready with the $1 million. Now the Bible verse. I want you to sing. Ephesians 5:19. Speaking. The verb is speaking to yourselves in psalms, hymns, spiritual songs. That's what you speak. Okay, notice this. Singing, that's what you're to do. And making melody in your what? Heart. That's where the origin of the music comes from. The human heart unto the Lord. Colossians 3:16, which I've always thought was interesting. I don't think it's by mistake. I think it's by design that Colossians 3:16 is right before Colossians 3:17. That tells you whatever you do it by his authority. And the verse right before that says, let the words of Christ dwell in you richly with all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your heart to the Lord. So I say, Randall, your reward is not $1 million, but it's heaven. Be faithful unto death. I'll give you a crown of life. Randall, what are you going to do? I didn't say another word. I just waited. Turned white as a ghost. He just shook his head. I said, Randall, is it a sin to add jam, the energy drink, and instrumental music to the worship? Is it a sin? Randall put his head, he turned white as a ghost, and he put his head on the table. Nicole and I looked at each other, trying to figure out what he was doing. And his head just went back and forth like this. He picks his head up off the table. He's got a pool of tears where his eyes had laid. And those tears are running down his eyes. I knew he got it. I put my hand on his shoulder. I said, oh, Randall, I said, I can't imagine how hard this is for you. I said, I can't imagine. In his words, I still remember him. I still remember what he said to me. He says, Rob, he says, I didn't know. He said, Rob, no one ever told me this. He said, why didn't I know this? I said, I don't know, Randall. I said, I don't know. He said, if someone would have taught me this, I wouldn't be using instruments. And it was that verse, that teaching that was able to penetrate through the life of error he was living, and the reason he was baptized into Christ for the remission of his sins. I can remember calling Renee and saying, Renee, I said, I got great news. He said, your husband Randall wants to become a Christian. What? And we brought in the family, the elders, and we had that baptism. And I'm telling you, that little church, that was a little country church, that shook the town. Because the superintendent of the Methodist church has now left the Methodist church. And now he's a member of the body of Christ. The very next day, it was early in the morning. Those farmers get up really early. And I don't know, it may have been 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and my doorbell rang. And Nicole looks over and says, who in the world would be at our house? I said, honey, I don't know. I said, I get up and, I walk to the door, and I'm just trying to get my eyes to open up, I open the door. On the other side of the door is Malin Cottingham, one of the elders, with a 3-liter Coke in his hand. He said, well, preacher, I guess I lost this one. He said, there you go. Well, oh, mercy. And I won't tell you what I did with that Coke because I can't in a mixed audience. And it's a very interesting story about that. That 3-liter Coke stayed in my house for several years until a man in his 90s locked himself into a bathroom. And well, I guess I will tell you the story. He locked himself in his bathroom. He calls me. His name is John Duncan. He's out there in that little place. He's a multi-millionaire, but lives like he has $1. Houses falling apart, cars falling apart. He wears the same clothes every day, but he is a wealthy man. And he calls me. He says, hey, Rob. I said, hey, John. He says, Rob. He says, I locked myself out of the bathroom. He said, you got a Coke anywhere in your house? I said, Coke? I said, yes. I said, well, I got that one Malin gave me a couple years ago. I wouldn't drink it. I didn't want to sin. And so, so I said, yes, I got one. He said, bring it to the house. So I said, Nicole, you're never going to guess. John's locked himself out of his own bathroom and he wants the Coke. And she said, well, I'm not going with you. I said, no, I wouldn't go either. And so I went down to the house I just almost could walk there, got to the house, and John's got his cane. He's shaking a little bit. Come on, Rob, follow me. So it takes us a little while. We get back over to the door, and I got this Coke right here. He says, let's go to the kitchen. So I said, well, we're going to make mess, so we got to go to the kitchen. So we get over to the kitchen, and then John goes over a door, and he grabs this big knife. It's a butcher knife. I've never seen a knife like this before. It's big. And he puts the Coke down, and he says, Rob, hold the Coke. His arm's doing like this, and I'm holding this guy. I said, John, what do you want? He said, well, can you cut the top off this thing? I said, oh, yeah. So I unscrewed it. I poured it all out, and I cut the top off. All right, John, go ahead. And he says, and all of a sudden he says, well, let me get the scissors. I said, the scissors? I said, John, it's okay, get the scissors. So then he cuts part of the Coke bottle off. He takes it over the door, slides it like a credit card, and opens the door. Now, where was your head? What were y'all thinking he's going to do? Because he was just going to use it to open the door. That's all. And that's what happened to the 3-liter Coke. Anyway, any questions about this lesson? Any questions? So here, let me carry it a little bit further. When do you use these charts? Only when I have to. Okay, that's I need to end it with that statement. I don't use charts unless I have to use the charts. Back to the Bible is good enough alone for most people you study with. But if I'm with a hardliner and I know that this is, by conversation, that this is going to be a sticky issue, I bring out my charts. I've got a lot of charts. And the good news with this here is when you open the chart, on the back side is the script. And it's the page number of where I use it, a picture of it. So you're holding it like an old Jewel Miller flip chart, right there, seeing it, you're reading it. That's what I use Evangelism Visualize for. Most of the charts, not all of them, are in Congregational Evangelism. If you're going to do Bible studies, highly recommend Evangelism Visualize. It's a great tool that we use. All right. Any questions, comments? Yes, sir.
I've had people tell me where they went through what you're talking about, but then they say, well, there's instrumental music and Revelation.
Okay, sure. So there are a few places where instrumental music is referenced. Revelation is one of them. All right, so a couple things. Where is it? It's in heaven, and it's in a book of figures. Okay, highly figurative. Okay, and it says like as of. It sounded like, and it sounded like the voice of harpers harping. There's no way that you can extrapolate that back down here into, New Testament worship. There's no example of it. So yes, I've had a few people say that. It just doesn't hold water. But I didn't even put it in my rebuttals because it's so seldom used. Yeah. Your main arguments are the ones I've given you. Yes, sir.
A lot of people say that, God gave them that talent.
Yes.
And you hear that.
Yes, you do.
And I am sure of my granddaughter's a gymnast.
That's right.
She's got a talent. She's got her up there doing split props in front of the congregation.
You and I are twins. That's what I say the same thing. I use it. I just pick a talent. Just because you have a talent doesn't mean God wants it in worship. There's a lot of talents that do not belong in worship. So, a lot of the arguments they give, they just don't hold water. They do not hold water. Like Jim just did, you just draw a parallel to the outside, and that doesn't make any sense. But it is, those two things are other things they might say. Keno, where's Keno at? He stepped outside. See, Jason, I know you've done several Bible studies. Caleb, I know you've done a lot of Bible studies. Dad, I know you've done a lot of Bible studies. When you're doing Bible studies, how often does instrumental music become the sticking point and you can't get past it? Yeah. How many times? One time for you, Austin? Yeah, one time. Yeah. This is not the issue that you should fear. It's back to the Bible does extremely well. And as with Austin, I can hardly think of one time that and if it is, let's answer this. If it is the issue, If they get to a point where they say, I just don't know if I can get this, I don't know if I can, I'm not so sure, you know what I'm going to say? I'm not going to die on Mount Instrument. I'm going to say, okay, well, we'll go back to it later. Let's just keep going. Yeah. And that was a hard heart. Yeah, when you get the hard hearts, there's nothing you can do. And so when you get a person who's not reasonable, they will not, there's nothing you do. But don't die on Mount Instrument, Brother Jim.
We study for people because we don't even mention it. We just teach them the plan of salvation.
Yeah. So what I want to do when I teach people is I want to use the Acts 8:12 model, where they talk about the kingdom of God, the name of Jesus Christ, and baptism. And so in talking about the kingdom of God, which is the church, I want them to know the basics of the church. That, therefore, when they become a Christian, they understand there's an obligation to the church. So I'm not going to go into detail, but I want them to understand the basics. The second reason I think this is important is that the contrast between denominational churches and the Lord's church is a drawing power. They say, okay, the Lord's Supper is not right, worship is not right, instrumental music's not right, the name of the church isn't right, the organization of the church isn't right. And every time they see a contrast, it's like a chink in the armor. You know, it shows, hey, I was wrong here, I was wrong here, I was wrong here. And so it makes it more likely for conversion. So as I began my study, I mentioned that using this study helps make those contrasts clearer, which makes the conversion easier. But I understand in some foreign countries, I understand what you're saying. We are out of time. It's 2:03. Let's take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to get into the curriculum. Thank you, everybody. Get started, this is a special class, and I think that you'll find it very helpful. Brother Austin Fowler is going to be co-teaching this class. He's going to be back in the booth operating the website. I'm going to help. Austin's going to help navigate for me and put the proper pages and modules on the screen. So let me go ahead and begin by asking if you want access to the website. If you want website access, okay, what you're going to have to do, all right, is you're going to have to give me your name and email, and you need to do it by email. So you just need to email me at rob@housetohouse.com, rob@housetohouse.com, HOUSETOHOUSE, and say, I was at AMC. And that tells me you are eligible, and I will create for you in fact, let's do it this way. Erase that email. Email David@housetohouse.com, David@housetohouse.com. Say, I was at American Mission Campaign. Please provide me access to the website. And he'll do it for you. So we have a tech guy, and that's what he does. So it takes something off my plate. And so David will give you access to the website and allow you entrance. All right, so when you at first click, you're going to come up to a screen that looks like this, all right? Austin's going to scroll down and enter the curriculum, all right? So it's going to say enter curriculum. He's going to hit enter, and of course you see the model, and at this point there is the program. You see where it says view program? Right there, you're going to hit view program, all right? And you're going to now have access to our modular curriculum. Brethren, this took us a lot of work to create, and there's a lot of resources invested in this. And I'm going to have Austin on the top right. Austin, you see where that arrow is? Go to the right more, to the other side. Go to right. Go all the way to the right, the other side. Okay, scroll up a little bit. Scroll up. Yep, right there. Enlarge it right there. Yep, there we go. All right, so we're looking at the 6-step HTHSOE model. And so if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see the model. And Austin, minimize the introduction for me. Minimize on the menu option, the introduction on the left-hand side. Okay? All right, now, first thing I want to show you. Our website is based on our 6-step model. So you'll notice it says contacts on the model, and there's contacts in the menu. It says prospects on the model. It says prospects on the menu. And so if you'll scroll that model down a little bit, Austin, they'll see the remainder. Bible studies, baptisms, new converts. And so as you're looking at the curriculum, this is how you find things. So if you want to find information about contacts, you would click contacts. If you want Bible studies, you click Bible studies. So Austin, if you'll go over to the menu option, hit contacts. All right, so let's say you wanted to find information about how to train a church on what to do when visitors walk through the door. All you got to do is click visitors. You click visitors, and you're going to have a video show up. Those videos are between 3 and 5 minutes. All right, and those videos will allow you to view the content, the training content, and there's usually several videos you can watch. And as you scroll down the screen, you're going to see, and there's a lot of videos for visitors because this is a very important part of our training module. You're going to see a bullet point, and this is important. This is the training. The actual training we do is in bullet point form. We make it short. And so if you were an eldership at a local church, here's what you would do. You would select a coordinator for visitors. You would fill the team with as many members as are needed, and we suggest you need around 4 families per 100. So if you're a church of 200, that's 8 families. You would give that coordinator 8 families. You would go into a conference room, and the bullet points is what you cover. You train your team. And so this is what you're trying to do when visitors walk through the door. It's real simple. All right, you may watch some of the videos together. If you scroll further down the list, okay, if you just scroll a little bit further down, you're going to notice there is a drop-down PDF. The PDF is just the bullet point training sheet. That's all it is. Welcoming visitors. You can make copies of that. You can give it to your team members. That way they can take it home. They can study it. Again, this is the direction sheet. What are we trying to achieve? What's our purpose? When visitors walk through the door, what do we want? We want to make a contact. How do we do it? Here's the process that we use. Let's go back up and over to the website. If you scroll down a little further, Nicole, ladies, yesterday handed out to you, remember the visitor bag contents? So if you click on visitor bag contents, there they are. So again, if you're a coordinator and you're wanting to make sure you get the proper items and for your visitor bag, print it out right here. Or you can give it to maybe some sisters, and maybe they're authorized to go to the Dollar Tree once a month and make 20 visitor bags. So at Glencoe, Nicole, she actually does the visitor bags for Glencoe. And so what she'll do, once a month, she'll go to the store and she gathers the items, she makes the visitor bags, she brings them to the church, and she fills it up as needed. Now, for Brother Tim and I spent about an hour this morning going over this, because in order for a congregational evangelism approach to work, it's got to be congregational, which means you have to train your membership. So there is training for just the team, but then the membership as a whole, there's a sermon to be preached. And so, Austin, if you'll click that sermon, if you don't mind, all right, there's a sermon that goes along with visitor training. And so that sermon, all right, is going to provide the church the information they need. So when visitors walk through the door, we're not a grouchy church, we're a kind church, and we know how to greet visitors. So there's the sermon. We also have a PowerPoint back on the website, and on some of them, and that's a PowerPoint. So bring that PowerPoint up. And this would be for Brother Tim. Again, if he's going to train the church, here's his PowerPoint. All right? You have access to all of this. Go ahead and engage the PowerPoint, Austin, and we'll run through a few of the slides just so they can see it. All right? So here's a PowerPoint on just visitors. Now, you saw my PowerPoint yesterday. Okay, this is for the training of the church. Go to the next few slides, Austin. All right, so here's a training schedule. So one of the things you have to do in a church is you got to run them through the training. One Sunday we focused on visitors. Another Sunday we focus on new movers. Another Sunday we focus on a Bible study. So here's a list of some of the topics we're going to cover. This one, of course, is going to cover visitors. Move to the next slide. This is our 6-step model. Where do visitors fit in the model? Where would you put them? That's exactly right. Go to the next one. So Austin goes to the next one. Click it again. There it is. We're going to talk about visitors today. I would suggest that these are sermons that are not done on Sunday morning. This is a Sunday evening sermon. It's done for the heart of the church. Next slide. All right. So we now remind the church of what are we trying to do here. Click next. That's what we're trying to do. Everything in our church needs to focus back on evangelism. So every church has a lot of works, a lot of programs they're doing. And we talked about programs. We need to make sure they all have one, they all have a focus. The focus is, does this program help us bring people to Christ? Is this program focused on the mission of the church, which is to, bring souls to Christ? So if we're edifying the brethren so they can bring people to Christ, if we're providing benevolence to people to bring them to Christ, whatever we do, it's all about evangelism. Go to the next slide. All right? So how can we best evangelize our visitors? We must change our mindset about our approach to evangelism. We have to make sure that we focus in a congregational way. We're all going to participate. We're all on board. We all understand the plan. What's the plan? Well, let's go. All right. Genesis 19 is a great text for visitors. It's how visitors should be treated. Go ahead and run through that, Austin, with hospitality, concern, and respect. And we talk and emphasize how Genesis 19 shows us that. Next slide. All right. This is our training card. If you recall yesterday, in your backpack, you have these training cards. We looked at the visitor training card, right? All right, so this is the basic training of the church. We want visitors. We're going to identify who they are, greet them at the door with door greeters. Then, of course, we're going to, with our pew greeters, give them a gift bag, okay, a gift as we're sitting with them. Try to figure out, are they local or temporary? And then we're going to, as we give them that gift, gather the contact information and then put them on the prospect list. And so it's a cycle. So the PowerPoint is there to help the church and the church members understand what is the goal. So when visitors walk through the door, everybody's on the same page. We all understand what the purpose is. So when that visitor comes into this auditorium, maybe the door greeters lead them here, and they sit down. We know that a family that's been trained going to sit either behind them or in front of them and begin this process together. So you can go ahead and click out of that PowerPoint, Austin. I'm just demonstrating kind of the training options you have on the website. So all of this is available for you. There's training for every single part of the model. So if you'll contract the contacts, Austin, all right, go back up to the introduction. There's a couple of things I'd like to show you. So when you first get into the website, I would strongly recommend as you drop down that menu bar, go ahead and drop that down. All right, you go through what we call the training videos that teach you how to use the website. How many of you have ever used a modular website for school? Anybody here done that? Yes. All right. So you're taking a course and it gives you the modules on the side and you just complete the steps. You'll notice it says complete step on the bottom. Once you complete a step, you just hit click and it'll take you to the next one. All right. So you're just going through these modules, learning how to develop the model. This is not an individual effort. This is a congregational effort, meaning that the church in some way is being brought in as these particular modules are developed. People understand, where is my place? We have some working with visitors, some working with new movers, some working with compassion cards, invitation cards, door knocking, whatever it may be. We're getting the membership involved. Some of you will do more than one thing, all right? So it's based on the 1 Corinthians 12 principle. Some are eyes, ears, hands, feet, right? Some of you are uncomely, right? I don't know which one of you are uncomely, but the Bible says we have uncomely members. But when the uncomely members aren't working correctly, we all know about it, don't we? So if your uncomely members were not working right now, you would not be here. And so, in other words, some have a more of a back seat role. They don't want to be recognized, all right? They don't want anybody to know what they're doing. They don't want recognition. They just want to work behind the scenes. And my wife is someone who loves to work behind the scenes. She does not like the limelight. She does not want to be recognized. She doesn't want anybody to call her name. To get her to speak in front of women, a class, I have to beg her to do it because she doesn't want to do it. She doesn't want attention at all. All right? People have different talents, different gifts. We're going to utilize all of them and place you in places where you can succeed. Let's go back to the introduction. All right? Let's go down here, Austin, and go down here to, let's go down here to the accountability board towards the bottom. I want to share with you something. One of the things we recommend a church does is they set up an accountability board. And I would send it right up here. I would put it on right there or right there. So there's a video that explains it. But Austin, if you'll scroll down and show them what it looks like, I think that's the best way to do it. All right, let's go ahead and enlarge that. All right, so we would encourage every church, okay, to have a board that shares their metrics. What are your metrics? How many visitors have you had for the month of January? How many visits have you made as a church? So I didn't ask how many visits Tim made. That's not fair. How many visits has the church made? All right, then we want to find out how many prospects do we have? How many compassion cards have we sent out? So let me give you some numbers to chew on. If you're a church of 100 and you're properly following the model, you're sending out between 100 and 150 cards a week, okay? 100 and 150 cards a week. So the smaller the church, obviously the smaller the quantity is. Prospects, a church of 100 should have around 10 prospects. A church of 200, somewhere around 20 prospects. The larger your church, the more you can handle. The smaller your church, you can't handle as many. Okay, churches are bound by their size, and there's resource allocation. I would love to handle 100 at a time. There's no way you can do that. It's impossible, all right? So you can only handle what you can handle. So you about 10% of your membership is a pretty good ballpark. So if you're a church of 100 and it said we have one prospect, you're in trouble, aren't you? You're never going to grow with one prospect, okay? You got to get that number up. If you're a church of 100 and you have 20 prospects, you're going to have some ladies in the church who are going to be very upset at you because that's a lot of work, all right? And the ladies sometimes bear the brunt of this, all right? And so there's only so much So many hours in a day. So we try to keep it in perspective. How many Bible studies do we have going on? A lot of churches don't like to answer that. They don't want anyone to know because they don't have any. All right? We have more categories. In fact, we have baptisms. What's your baptism goal? And so we want to display. We don't want to hide our numbers. We want to make sure everybody sees the numbers. Why do we call it an accountability board? Because what does it do? It keeps you accountable, right? It's the same reason we show the contribution and attendance, right? All right, it's a measurement. Brother Gary Massey, he's a preacher there in Chattanooga, and he spoke for me at Polishing the Pulpit. I asked him to speak on the School of Evangelism, and he said this was one of the biggest tools for their church. And he says, I compare it to like going to my doctor and having my blood pressure. What's your blood pressure tell you? Those numbers are indicative of what? They're indicative of your health. So, Brother Jim, if you go to the doctor and your blood pressure is 170 over 100, there's a problem somewhere, right? If you go to the doctor and your blood pressure is 120 over 80, all right, we're okay. Those numbers tell us about your health. I can't think of better numbers than these to tell us if we're healthy. These are much better than your attendance, much better than your contribution. And my contention is that if these numbers are where they need to be, your attendance will be just fine. If these numbers are where they need to be, your contribution is going to be just fine. So if you show me a church, of 100 people that's got, 6, 4, 5 Bible studies, they got 10 prospects, they've sent out, a few hundred cards at the end of the month, they've made, a dozen visits, I know I don't have to see your contribution. I know where it's at. I don't have to see your attendance because there is no church that can do that kind of work that doesn't have the other already in check. So in my judgment, this is my opinion. I'll tell you when it's Rob's opinion. Rob's opinion is sometimes we look at the wrong metrics. We're looking at the wrong numbers. Okay, these numbers are far more powerful and indicative. I went to one congregation. I knew they had a metric board, and I didn't see it. And the first question I asked, I said, brother, where's your accountability board? He said, we took it down. I said, well, why did you take it down? He said, well, the numbers were pretty bad. I said, at work, does anybody have metric boards at work, number boards that give you numbers that kind of tell you, where you are in production, how many, does anybody have anything like that? Anybody here have a metric board at work, numbers that you got to keep up with? All right, Michael says yes. People are raising their hand back there, yes. All right, so let's just say, Michael, at your place of employment, you weren't producing like the job wanted you to, and you decided, we'll just take them down. They would fire you, right? So let me give you some other comparisons. A grade book for a teacher is that's your metric board. And you decided, well, the grades don't really look good, we'll just throw it away. Now, the students may like that, but it's not going to work for her, all right? So we all have these metrics and numbers. These are good metrics right here to keep up with. Go ahead and close that out, all right? So we would encourage a church to keep their metrics and display it. Just let the church know. So if the metrics, go back to the program there, Austin, if the metrics aren't where they need to be, whose fault is that? It's our fault. You can't say, Tim, now you're not doing your job. No, that is completely inaccurate. Okay, it's wrong. You can't say, well, we're not doing our job. All right, if we don't have Bible studies, if we don't have prospects, if we're not sending cards out, if we're not having baptisms, it's all of our fault. And so let's just own up to it. All right, go back up to towards the top a little bit, Austin, if you will, and hit the coordinator spreadsheet. That's an important one to look at. Coordinator spreadsheet. So the coordinator spreadsheet, and enlarge that when you get to, there you go. That is the direction sheet. Every module has directions on how to break it down. I always make them very simple. If you scroll down to the bottom, Austin, there it is. All right. And can you enlarge that for me? All right. See if we can enlarge that so you can get a better view of it. All right. Keep going. Keep going. Uh-oh. I'm going the wrong way. All right. I think we're going to have to go the other way. That's all right, Austin. If you can't enlarge, okay, that's right. You can do it that way. We have it in multiple formats. All right, very good. All right, thank you, Austin. Go to the top. All right, this is really important for administrative purposes. So every Church of Christ in our school, we have about 350 of them. One of the things we're always looking for is, do you have an administrator? Do you have someone at the top that's breaking everything down? So a school system has an administrator. That administrator makes sure the math department is there, the science department is there, and in the math department, these are how many classrooms we have, these are how many teachers we have. They don't teach the class, but they just make sure it's administered. All right? Same thing. Okay, so look at our colors. I want you to look at our colors. The color silver represents contacts. Your training cards for contacts are all silver. You know why? It's unfertilized dirt. It's never been worked up. All right. So look at the silver categories right here. You have the top one, which is the bookmark. Okay. One of the things that we're going to encourage you to use is a bookmark where every member begins to write down the people they know that they want to bring to Christ. And so every church member knows people that are lost. So raise your hand if you know 10 people that are lost. Raise your hand. Okay, again, if you're a church of 175, that's 1,750, right, contacts. We call those tier 2 contacts because they're referrals. They're better than door-knocking contacts. You know why? Door-knocking contacts are tier 3, which means they're cold. No one knows them. We don't know, you're going to have to take your time and develop that fruit. But if it's your friend, your family, your coworker, you already know them, they're tier 2. That's the bookmark, and I'll explain that a little bit more later, but we need a coordinator of that. Someone to make sure that every time we come together that we're looking at those. Next one, okay, the unfaithful. Are the unfaithful, is that part of evangelism? It is. Should we be reaching out to people who've fallen away? Yes or no? Do we do a good job in the church doing that? Did y'all hear that? That was in unison. Not one person said yes. Not one individual said, yeah, we do a great job with that. So we've got to address that. How do we address that? Well, we do it congregationally. This is all congregational. So we're going to create a plan where the Church of Christ reaches out to lost people. By the way, one of the things we did when we came here is we said to the elders, would you mind sharing with us prodigals? They gave us 10 prodigals. So on Sunday afternoon, we began the process of restoring the prodigals. So every day we're sending each of your prodigals a couple of cards, asking them to come back and telling them we love them. What would a coordinator do? A coordinator would make sure that on that prospect list, we always have prodigals on the list. The list isn't only prodigals, but we're always working with prodigals. And Jim, if you notice there's a family, and Jim, you say, man, they haven't been here this Sunday. The next Sunday, they're not there. And you 4 weeks, you haven't seen them. And you say, man, there's something wrong. It's not because they're sick. They're spiritually getting weak. Put them on your prospect list and let the church start loving them and say, hey, we miss you. It's hard to resist love. And so there's a process we use to try to pull prodigals back. But if you don't have a coordinator, someone on top of it, elders are overwhelmed. The preacher, he's got about 3,000 things to do. All right, you got to appoint somebody and say, okay, here's how you do that. And so you'll go into the contact module on the website. You're going to hit prodigals. You're going to fully develop that module. And so go ahead and do that, Austin. Go down to contacts. Go down to the unfaithful. I call them prodigals, but they're hit that. Now watch what happens. There's a video that tells you how to do it. Keep going a little further. There's your bullet point sheet. There's your training card. Keep going down a little further, or keep going up a little further. I think we're still developing the sermon on that one. I don't see the sermon, but we do have one. We're almost finished with it. But there is the approach. Let's just look at it. How do we restore unfaithful people? First, we recognize them. Who are they? We need a list, right? We need to know, who are they? So let's go back in our director and find out who has fallen away, not moved away, but fallen away. Second, let's reach out to them. Send cards, literature. Let's make sure they know we care. So let's send 2 to 3 cards every day. We love you. We miss you. Your pew's warm. We can't wait to see you back. Your parking spot's still there. All right. So we're going to reach out to them through love and compassion. And then we're going to make that final visit after they've gotten 40 or 50 cards. We're going to knock on the door, say, hey, my name's Rob, my wife Nicole. We've missed you guys at church. We've been sending cards and praying for you guys. Are y'all okay? See what happens. What's the worst that can happen? They don't come back. That's the worst thing that's going to happen. But what could happen is, hey, thank y'all. Can y'all come on in? Come on in. And we actually have a Bible study for people that need to be restored. And it's actually brand new. And it's called a Bible study it's called Second Chances is the name of the study. We're about to reveal it. We've been working on it for several years. And maybe we can do a Bible study with them and restore them. Galatians 6, 1 and 2. And notice this. How do you restore people? Repentance. They need to repent. All right, it's a change of heart. And through prayer. And what should we do when they repent? What should we do? Receive them. And so there's your sermon right there. All right, everybody holds the card in their hand. And now everybody realizes, I have some skin in the game. I need to participate in this. All right, I need to send my cards. I need to be praying for these individuals. I need to try to encourage them to come home. I would encourage you to always have prodigals on your list. Always be reaching out. So we did a study about 3 years ago using this methodology, and we found out that the range of restoration, this is range, is 30 to 70%. Low end 30% if you follow the model. If you do this, high 70%. The Hillsborough Church of Christ in Tennessee restored 70% of their prodigals doing this. 70% of them restored. And so each week in Reaching the Lost, which is our update, you'll see restorations that are occurring because of this. Go ahead and X out of that, Austin. Go back, if you would, to that coordinator spreadsheet on the Excel spreadsheet. And let's look at our coordinators. So this, again, is important for elders, right? Because you're building an evangelistic church. You got to have people in the right place. What happens if you don't do this? Hey, Tim, can you do the Tim? Hey, Tim. And I know this because I've been Tim. And you're killing your preacher. Don't do that to him. Okay? Let him excel in Bible studies. That's where his strengths are. Get somebody else to do this other stuff, right? So we have plenty of people that get involved, and that is so important. So all of those gray areas right there are your contact creators, your visitors, house to house, heart to heart, new movers, door knocking, invitation card, digital media. Somebody asked me about digital media. I can't remember who it was. Was that you, Peter? We have a whole module on digital media, how to use it to create contact. You can drive traffic and create contacts using digital media. And we have a whole lesson on how to do that. And so, if that's an interest area of yours, you might volunteer, say, hey, I'll be the coordinator of that. I want to learn how to do it, because it takes someone who has some little bit of time and skill set. So if you'll scroll up, Austin, a little bit, let's go ahead and reveal the brown section. All right, prospects. All right, it's brown. I changed the color because now we have contacts and we're going to fertilize the soil. So if you've ever gardened, you know that fertilized soil has a different feel to it, doesn't it, Carl? It doesn't feel the same. It smells good too. And so you got your compost pile out there. You've been fertilizing it and working it up. Man, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like that dirt, right? Like that. You prepared it and it's ready. How do we prepare the contacts? We do it through, number one, all right, we got to have a list. So when churches call me and they say, hey, Rob, we're struggling. We don't know what's going on. Hey, do you have a prospect list? Keno, how many times when you go to a church that needs help, is this the problem? Yeah, say it again. Because they don't do it. They ignore it. Well, you don't need to do that. It's not going to work if you don't do it. If you don't have a prospect list, you got to have a list of people that you're working out. Who here has written cards so far? Who here has written cards? When y'all sit down, you know what that list is called? It's called the prospect list. Now, obviously, your prospect list during AMC is massive, right? That's not normal, okay? Normally, a church of 175 would have around, 15, 20, prospects on it. All right, but again, AMC is like on steroids. Everything's on steroids right now. All right, so we got our prospect list. How do we find the prospect list? Austin, take us back to the website, Keno. Everyone. So I can't emphasize that enough. And sometimes I think that sometimes people dismiss us. Oh, that's, we don't need that. We've got an app. I've got it on my iPhone. I've got it on my iPad. It doesn't work. You need a prospect list. It must be a printed list that everybody has access to. Everybody tries to find workarounds for this. I've never found a church successfully do it. I've never seen one. All right, let's go to prospect list. Let's go down, Austin, for prospect list. All right, there's your bullet point sheet. Congregational setup, prospect list template. Let's go ahead and see what it looks like. You should already know it's in your congregational evangelism book. You got your list. There it is. You just type in the names, all right? And now we have access. Now people know who it is we're trying to reach. If the membership does not know who they're trying to reach, they cannot reach them. Isn't it simple? I know, sometimes I feel like it's so elementary. You know, what the things I'm saying, this is not algebra, this isn't even high school math. This is kindergarten stuff. All right, if the people in your church don't know who the prospects are, they cannot reach them. So this is not in the, we better hide that in the preacher's office and put it in the filing cabinet. Don't forget to lock it. Now, why? Like, why would you do that? Why not let the church know these are the individuals we're reaching out to? So now the hands go up. Oh, now, Rob, if we have a prospect list, what happens if they visit? All right? That's an administrative title. You know what we call it? The love list. We call it the compassion card list. We call it the neighbor list. So let's say someone walks inside and they see this list, and and the title of it's love list. And they find their name on the love list. How do you think they're going to feel about this church if they're on the love list? How do you think? Oh, they love me. Now, if someone gets mad because you love them, if someone gets mad because you send them cards, were they reachable to begin with? Yes or no? No. Have you done any harm? No. All right? So yes, every now and then you run across somebody who's there's nothing you can do during this time in their life that's going to reach them. They're mad at the world. If you smiled at them, they're going to frown at you. If you open the door, they open the one to the next. They don't want to be touched. They don't want to be reached, okay? There's nothing you can do. If someone gets mad because you love them, my thought process is, well, who could reach them? How could they have been reached? No one can reach them right now. So, very important is the prospect list. That's, by the way, on page 102 of your Evangelism Simplified guidebook. It's also on the list. So, a more detailed spreadsheet, don't click that, Austin. For those of you, I'm going to have you click the simple one first, but if you are a computer Excel ninja and you want a very detailed spreadsheet, I'll give you that you can click that bottom one. For the rest of us, all right, the rest of us who are not ninjas on Excel, I give you this. So what you're going to do, where we go, Austin? All right. What we're going to do is we're going to have the secretary or the coordinator keep track of all your prospects on a spreadsheet. And so we're going to put Bob Smith, relationship, neighbor of Jim, Hatfield, description, cancer, address, phone, date added. Move over just a little bit. Week 1, what'd you do? We sent 45 cards. Week 2, what'd we do? Sent 53 cards. Week 3, what'd we do? Sent 46 cards. Other actions. Ladies brought food over a Monday and Tuesday of week 1. Make your notes. Now, why am I doing this? There's a reason for this, okay? So you go out here, we make contacts. We go into the card room, we write cards. We go deliver food. Then what? Then what, Jason? We just quit? We stop? We're not going to do it. Is that the end of it? Are they going to run in the building and say, "There's the baptistry," and dive in? No, they're not. What you've done is you've found some soil. You have fertilized the soil. Now what must take place? What must you do next? Plant the seed. Okay, plant the seed. How do you do that? Austin, go back to the website. Go down to prospects. Go down to the bottom of prospects on the website and see where it says transition. The transition. All right, there it is. Hit that transition. We're going to make a transition visit. We're going to assemble our team of evangelists, which is a small group in the church. These are your Navy SEALs. And we're going to talk about how to do it. We're going to give you videos on how to do it. But I'll give you an example of what I do. My wife and I would go to the door. And we're evangelists. And we've done this. We would knock on it, but we would have a gift in our hands. We'd have probably a food basket gift, some gift. I would not go to the door without a gift. Remember, inside of that house, they got 50, 60 cards, right? So this is called the transition. And on that Sunday, once a month, we've met and we have divvied these out. And I may have looked at Tim and his wife. If I'm the coordinator, I said, "Tim, would y'all visit 2 of these for us this week?" That's doable for you, Tim. But you know what's not doable? Tim, go ahead and do this for us. Please don't do that to your preacher. Please don't. It's not fair. That's what makes preachers quit. Okay, you have to help him. He'll take 2 of them, maybe 3. But Jim says, I'll take one of them. And then Jason says, I'll take one of them. And then John says, I'll take one. And then Peter says, I'll take one of them too. And then some of the other members here say, I'll take one. And so everybody starts getting involved. And this is what you want. You want involvement of but these are the Navy SEALs. These are people comfortable with talking and doing Bible studies. We're going to distribute, so this week, these are your visit assignments. We do it once a month. It's all we do, once a month. We're going to go make our visits, and when we get there, Austin, if you'll scroll again to the bottom of the screen, all right? We've got questions. Look at those questions. Can you highlight those questions right there, Austin? Right there. That's what you're going to ask. We're going to knock on the door. They're going to open it up. I'm going to identify myself. Now remember, I've got a gift in my hand, and they got 40, 50, 60 cards in their house, right? What kind of response do you think you're going to get? Let me tell you what an elder from the Crossville Church of Christ told me. He said, Rob, when you taught us how to do this, he says, your seminar frightens me. I said, why is that? He said, I am scared to death to go visit these people. He said, because I know they're just going to cuss me and slam the door. That's what he told me. He said, but I trusted you. I decided I'd do what it says. So my wife and I made our gift. And man, I tell you, I was shaking inside. And I went to the door, knocked on it, and I'm just waiting. They're going to yell at me. And then all of a sudden they open up and say, hey, my name is Bill, my wife Joanne. We're from the Crossville Church of Christ. And yes, ma'am, you're that church in a card. Yes, ma'am. She literally grabbed my hand and pulled me into the house. She said, come here, sir. And she had all the cards displayed. And we sat down in the living room and we had our conversation. First, we just talked about the weather. We talked about life. And then we said, oh, by the way, Miss Joan, can I ask you something? Well, what do you think about the Crossville Church of Christ? Oh, it's a nice church. They sent me 61 cards. Your card's in there right now. Miss Joan, do you know a lot about the Crossville Church? I really don't know a lot about you. Miss Joan, would you like to know more about it? Oh, I kind of would. I just so happen to have, all right, maybe I have these little booklets. I got my back to the Bible. You got a Bible study. I don't ask for Bible studies. That's one of the things that we suggest. Do not say, would you like to have a Bible study? If you ask a person if they want to have a Bible study, what are they going to say 99 out of 100? No, I don't ask. I say, hey, would you like to know a little bit more about our church? After we've loved them, they're going to say yes. This is called the transition. Austin, would you go back to that coordinator sheet for me, please? In Excel. Go back to that sheet. Let's look at something. So we're developing a congregational model. Y'all see there where it says transition? What happens if you decide not to do that? We don't need a coordinator. We don't need to do transitions. Jason, what happens? Chaos. He's an elder. Listen to him. Chaos. Okay, that's what happens. Nothing happens. Okay, so you have all this work that's being done. And your ladies are excited, your men are excited, the church is excited, there's a lot of wind at your back, and man, this is great. And that excitement carries on 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and then people start to say, well, what are we doing next? Well, we're doing all this work and no Bible studies, all this work and I'm not going to help anymore. You better follow the model. You got to take them to the next step. The next step is to transition to that yellow area. And that yellow area, guess what area that is? That's called the what, Jason? We go from prospect to Bible study. All right? Now we keep the process moving. All right? So the website is how you develop that within your... It gives Tim training material to teach. And the administrator, the ability to set everything up. It provides you the sermons. It provides you the videos. It provides you the how-to. This is very important. Okay, you've got to someone has got to keep up with this. So when I used to go to churches, what I would do is send you about 100 emails and say, here's how you do it. Never going to work like that. The website allows you to have individual access, study at home, and set it up. Now, there's some exciting things that have happened since we developed this website, and I want to talk about those. We went to Apple, and we went to Android, the only two platforms that I know about, okay? And we said, hey, we want an app. Now, we're a religious institution, which means they hate us. Okay, they don't want us to succeed. And so we have to jump through hoop, and hoop to get this approved. Apple took us 6 months, and Google, Android took us another 6 months, but after a year's worth of work, we finally got our apps approved. So not only is this on a website, it's on an app. And so you can download the app for the website, and you can access everything I'm showing you right here. Here's something else that we've done. We have a YouTube channel, and all the videos, all of them, Austin, can you go to YouTube? Can you bring up YouTube and go to the School of Evangelism channel? All of the videos are on this YouTube channel. And so if you just type in School of Evangelism, all right, and Austin's going to do that. And I want to show you how we've organized this. All right, there we go. Right there. Okay, go to the channel. I think that's right. Yep. Okay, Austin, go to playlist. I think you're on play. You on playlist? All right, there you go. Look at this. Here are all the videos for contacts. Go ahead and click that on the bottom. Contacts, right in the middle on the bottom. Okay. Oh, go back one. View full playlist. See where it says view full? On the very bottom. See where it says view? Yeah, hit that. Those are all the videos that we have made to help you learn how to make contacts. So you find videos on how to knock doors. You're going to find videos on how to use the bookmark. You're going to find videos on how to use house to house. If you scroll down, you'll find videos on how to use new movers. All that's on the website. Every one of those is on the website. So our school has fully developed all these tools for the church. You're never going to catch up with us. I had an elder one time call me and says, Rob, when are we going to finish this? I said, when Jesus comes. Okay, we don't finish evangelism. We just continue to get better and better at it. We become more focused. We get more people involved. We do more training, and we continue to develop it. If your thought process is, I can't wait for 3 months when we can stop this stuff, you have lost your understanding of Christianity. Because Christianity is not based upon, well, next, let's do camp, next, VBS, next, graduation banquet, next, Teacher's Appreciation Day, next. That's what's gotten us into this mess. Okay? If we do not make evangelism the culture of our churches, okay, where all of these things intertwine and we develop them one at a time, then we end up segmenting our churches into all of these various programs, and each one takes a little bit of the energy we have. And before long, we're spent. Okay, we're tired because we all have all this going on. Let's focus it into one thing. And so, lads to leaders, it's evangelism. It's getting the kids ready, helping them understand and know more about the Bible. Whatever it is you're going to do. Okay, whatever, Vacation Bible School, let's focus it. In fact, we had several churches this last year. Their theme for VBS was evangelism. And their whole purpose was to get as many kids from their community to come, as many non-Christians to come as possible, because that's a great place to make contacts. Austin, can you take me back to the website real quick? All right, go back to the website. Let's go to, if we played a video, would there be sound? Michael, there would be? Is that true? There would be sound? That's perfect. All right, let's go to contacts, and I want to share with you one of our more impactful videos. Go to contacts. Let's go to the bookmark. And Austin, find your video. It says, go up. Congregation uses the bookmark. Is this, no, one more. Nope, that's right there. Right, that one right there. Okay? All right.
You should have all received a bookmarker a few weeks ago, the House-to-House, Heart-to-Heart School of Evangelism bookmarker. If you have that, go ahead and get that out right now. If you do not have one, please raise your hand. Brother Duggan is going to bring you one. Okay? I want you to get out your bookmarker. I'm going to get out mine. Got several that need one. Because we're going to be using this every week. This is not something we're just doing this Sunday. We are going to do this every week. And let me tell you why while those are being handed out. Brother Grider, if you want to grab some, there's some more on the evangelism table. We can get those handed out. Let me tell you why we're going to be using these every week. Because without contacts, we cannot take the gospel, okay? I want you to raise, I know there's some of you raising your hands, but you should keep your hand raised for this. Raise your hand if you know 10 non-Christians, you know 10 sinners, okay? If you struggle to know 10 sinners, I want you to do one thing. Get out your cell phone, go through your contacts in your cell phone, and find 10 names of people you do not know that are Christians. They're not members of the Lord's church, okay? That's an easy way to find 10 contacts. You probably work with 10 people that are non-Christians. You go to school with people that are non-Christians, okay? So your first job, if you're just now receiving this bookmarker, is to write down 10 names. 10 people that maybe you're very close.
All right, that's Austin Fowler. If you want to know how Austin came to work at the School of Evangelism, this is what did it. So Austin's at the Riverbend Church of Christ in Georgia, all right? Austin comes and he says, hey, we want to set up the evangelism. They had a few hiccups, but eventually the elders appointed Austin as the administrator. They said, Austin, you administrate it. So Austin said, fine, I'll do it. So he sets it up. One of the first steps is you pass out the bookmark. You preach on John 4. Tim, you and I talked about that this morning. You pass that out, start your sermon, teach the church how to make contacts, right? And now, all right, everybody holds their bookmark in their hand and they start writing down the people they're going to bring to Christ, all right? And then we're going to progress every Sunday and help you bring your friends and family to Christ. In 12 months, they baptized 24 people, a congregation of 90. When I saw that, I said, we got to hire Austin Fowler. He's got to come on board because he gets it. He understands it. And so he engaged the church. He engaged the membership. You've got to engage your membership. You got to, because your members, they know the contacts. They know them. Tim, that's the one thing I believe church members do better than we do. There's more than one, but they're better at contacts than we are. It's obvious. Why? Because you and I don't work. We don't work out there. We're not in the school system, right? They are. They live next to non-Christians. And so they know them. And so we need your help to provide the non-Christians. And when you provide them, we will prospect them and try to study with them. So this is powerful stuff. I just wanted to give you a taste of what that website can do. But if you'll follow it, and we have a checklist actually in the introduction that actually breaks it down chronologically. If you'll follow it and do it, it'll transform your church. It'll help elders organize a congregational evangelism effort, getting every member involved. Some members work here, some members work here, but everybody's doing something, all designed to bring people to Christ. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of an inside look into it. Most people have never seen it because you have to be enrolled to have access to it. Because you go through AMC, we give you enrollment. We're going to give it to you. But you will have to contact me, david@housetohouse.com, and ask for access, and he'll give it to you. Tell him you're at AMC, and he'll provide that access. Any questions about this? It's a lot of information. It takes time to develop. How do you eat an elephant? How do you eat an elephant? That's right. You don't do it all today. You develop it just a little bit every week. And we have a checklist to help you do that. It takes the average church 3 to 6 months to get everything functioning. But once you get it functioning, it is sweet. It's really sweet. It's transformational. Caleb. Yep. Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that, Caleb. Well, Caleb said, we have noticed that the membership provides about 50% of your contacts. The other 50% come from visitors, door knocking, new movers, invitation cards, digital media. And so we know where our contacts come from. And as Caleb said, if you don't fully develop it, it inhibits its effectiveness. You're not going to be as effective. And that's why we step you through it. Don't just rely on one thing. Yes, sir. leadership is so important. You have to have leadership with the preaching and teaching. You got to have both of those, or it just falls apart quickly. Kino. That's right. That's right. Yeah, and they've been here every day. Every day. Yes.
When I was clicking on all cylinders at Riverview, I had two elders that were studying Institute, and I sat in one of the elders studies with them, and it was fantastic. And then it just kind of, I went to help another church part time, and then it just fizzled out. But that's when we were successful. That's exactly right. Two elders were doing stuff.
Success breeds success. It does. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, they don't understand the numbers. The numbers are you need times, you need to take your membership and multiply it times 10, and that's how many contacts you need a year. Okay, that's how to get your number. And so again, it's a numbers game. The more people you go out to, you're going to find the few by going to the many. And we were out of time because card writing was supposed to start at 3:00. Austin, you want to?
So.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's fine.
So for the rest of the day, if you're in Group D,
while Austin's doing that, don't worksheets for helping people get through marriage, divorce, remarriage, and when they're living together. Every congregation can grab one of each, and they're on the table up here.
But if you're in Group D, that would be door knocking groups 23, 24, 25, 26. So those few groups, it is your day to write cards. If there's any Alkire Road members here that didn't get to write cards this morning, you're welcome to go in there and write cards as well. We got some, I think, praying for you today that we're trying to finish up and use the rest of the packs that we've already opened. So there'll be a few more spots open for those people, but once we're out of packs, we're kind of out of packs, so don't get mad at us. So that's what's going to happen right now. I know your schedule says 6 o'clock, but let's move that back to 6:30, give you a little bit more time. Actually, let's be honest, give us a little bit more time to go get something to eat because we got to get cards, we got to get some things cleaned up, and then we'll meet back in here at 6:30. When you come in here, please sit with your door knocking groups. We still have a lot of new movers to do. Michael counted them for me. We got 77 that were not home, that were not deliverable. So, and that's about normal. We usually get about
25%,
roughly. And so, but tonight, hopefully, we get out. Hopefully, they already have supper and be relaxing in their home, and we can catch them at home and talk to them and engage in conversation. So we'll do 6:30 here tonight to finish up new movers. If you need me, you have 5 minutes because I have a very important PTP meeting I have to be on at 3:15 that I cannot miss because I have deadlines Monday that I have to get to the convention center. So if you need me, you got me till about 3:12, so that's about 5 minutes. That's 4 minutes actually. I taught math, but anyways, and then I'm going to hide and have to do a meeting. But so Rob will be our point of contact. But write cards if you want to write cards. If not, we'll see you tonight at. I just kind of told them once we write cards. Okay. 6:30. Be back in here at 6:30.